Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Do you ever feel like you're doing the journey alone? Have you ever felt like that you just need someone to talk to, someone who could bring some perspective into your world? Or maybe you're not the type of person who learns from watching video courses or reading books, and you just want to talk with someone specifically about your challenges and how to break through them. I want to introduce you to the High Performance Men's Coaching Program. It's an intensive coaching experience designed to unlock a man's full potential in his life, business, and relationships. Over this past year, I've brought together and trained some of the best coaches in the world to help men step up, stop playing small, and become the strongest versions of themselves. Learn more about High Performance Men's Coaching at kfmcoach.com. Again, that's kfmcoach.com. You are not alone, and we are here to cut through the crap, hold you accountable, and challenge you so that you can make your dreams become a reality. Go to kfmcoach.com to learn more and apply.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Niyi Sobo, which is his nickname. Go ahead and, your full name, because I want everyone to know who, you are in case they want to learn more about you. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Ola Niyi Sobo, but Niyi Sobo is for short. It's Nigerian. My pops is from Nigeria, so I just shortened it up for y'all.
Former American football fullback, played football at Portland State. He signed by the New Orleans Saints back in 2008. And now he's leading he's CEO and peak mindset consultant at imnotyou.com. So Niyi, welcome back to the show.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on, bro.
All right, let's dive in. What's been something that you've been telling yourself, like a quote or a saying that you've been telling yourself to overcome adversity? Just a kickstart.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that I love. And he says, people wish to be settled, but only so far as they're unsettled is there any hope. And for me, that stuck out so much for me because so many times I feel like if I just look back at my history, all the times when I've been most unhappy is when I've been afraid to go through the fire, when I've been afraid to face reality. And so everyone wants to be settled, meaning everybody wants success. Everybody wants, the money, the attention, the whatever success means to anyone, but nobody wants to go through the fire. But only so far as they're unsettled. Only so far as we could deal with pain, we could deal with the adversity, we could face reality. Is there any hope? So that's not even guaranteed for the success. Is there any hope for us? So anyway, I remind myself of that frequently because as we were talking earlier, man, it's like in this entrepreneurial journey is so many challenges. You know what I'm saying? And if you allow those to derail you and you look at those as if they're bad things, there's virtually no hope for you. So that's a quote that I love and that I remind myself of often.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part, I think, is that you can go through the fire and then when you get out, you still might not succeed. Like you still might not reach your goal. Exactly. Like you can go through hardship. And I think that's the scariest part. It's like you're going through a haunted house just because I recently went to this haunted thing for the Halloween and all that. I knew that there's an exit. Like I knew that there was a way out, right? But imagine if it was just endless. Like I was just being chased by guys with chainsaws. Like I'd be like, dude, I'm out, But in some ways, like that is, the journey of trying something. It could be whether it's entrepreneurship. You played professional sports. How many people go through college football and want to become an NFL or NBA player or whatever, MLB? And it never happens. Like you have to work so hard. You have to do so much. And at the end of it all, you still might not succeed. And I think that's what's so scary about it.
Absolutely, man. And that's why you have to change the rules. You know what I mean? You have to like rig the game. Like my favorite, there's a great song on the DJ Khaled album by Nas called Insecure. He said something about reshuffled the deck and gave myself a good hand. So, we always talk about we've been dealt a bad hand. Mm-hmm. It's like you have to reshuffle the deck all the time. Give yourself a good hand. Make it easy for yourself to win. So as opposed to, as entrepreneurs, us just having some dollar figure or some amount of followers or some revenue figure that we use as the ultimate barometer for whether or not we've succeeded, we're going to be waiting a long time, right? And once we get that, then it's just going to be something else. So we need to make it easy to win on a daily basis, to find pleasure, to find gains at each step. And that is a habit, that you can build. And it's a little difficult at first because that's not how we're wired growing up. We're always wired to just focus on our grade, right? Whether we got the A or whether we got the money or the win. But it's bigger than that, man. Life is much bigger than that. And life is about progress. It's about growth. It's about evolution. So for me, I'm much like, I borrow the quote from a great book that just came out by Ray Dalio, Evolve or Die. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta grow or die. So if I'm evolving, I'm in the game, I'm winning. If I'm not, then that's where the real pain should be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Evolve or die. And that's pretty much evolution. Like, right. Darwinism, like if you don't evolve, there's so many species that are not here because they did not evolve. So how do you make it easy on a daily basis and find pleasure along the journey in the fire?
That's a great question. So there's a lot to that question, but I'll just give you sort of inside look into how I structure my day or how I look at my day.
Yeah.
Like I have big goals. I have this vision, right? I've chunked it down. I've reverse engineered it. I have my quarterlies. I got my monthlies. So when I approach a day, to me, this is it. Like this is all I have right now. This is it. And so whether or not I win or not is dependent on how emotionally engaged I am, right? Because as opposed to just focusing on some end goal, I can find whatever it is that I'm doing right here and establish small end games, right? So like even when I sit down before I do my work, I'm here at my home. I got my children. I homeschool my kids as well. So when I sit down to work, it's like, it's game time. I got 5-6 hours to do my work. So I set the end game and then I reverse engineer, say, okay, this is what I got to do. And then after I'm done, no matter what the result is, my job is to extract what I learned from it and extract gold from what I learned. So let's say I didn't get a lot done. Let's say I didn't accomplish. To me, that's not a loss necessarily because I'm still in the game. I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. So I can analyze what I did well, what I did wrong, and then apply it to the next day. And if I keep doing that over and over, what's going to happen is I'm going to grow. And so I've trained myself that every time I notice something, every time I face reality, even if it's painful, I can find something in it. I can use it to my benefit and I can grow. And it's the same thing we do in sports, right? Whenever a good football team, the Patriots right now, for example, I was just watching yesterday, they're 5-2, right? They're not tripping, man. Like even if they were 3-3, they're not bugging out because they're still in the game and they're still learning. So a good coach is always going to take the game film. He's going to watch it. He's going to analyze what went well, what didn't. He's going to apply what didn't go well. He's going to apply what they learned to tomorrow's practice. And then it's just a constant game of evolution and growth. And ultimately that becomes really, really fun. And then when you do hit the milestones, when you do get the big checks, when you do hit your first whatever $1,000 month, when you do get the whatever successes, then it's just almost like the cherry on top. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Do you think that if you switch your mindset of it's about what can I learn each day? Like how can I grow each day on a daily basis? And I'm extracting, you said the gold, like I'm extracting the value of what happened in the day is a much better plan than saying, did I, win the Super Bowl? Did I did I hit the dollar amount that I wanted?
Right. Great question, because I feel like a lot of us really, really want things to be really simple. We want black and white answers, right? And I'm not that guy to ever speak too much in black and white, because the reality is that having those barometers, having those goals, I have those as well. And every single day I have expectations. I have targets I'm trying to hit. So really, it's a two-pronged approach. I believe you should set the standards. You should deal in reality. You should set hard numbers for what it is that you want. And you will feel natural pain when you don't get those. So, for example, let's say somebody wants to make $20,000 a month and you make $10,000 a month. You should naturally feel some pain. That's $10,000 gap. Now, the challenge is not to beat yourself up over that, but allow yourself to feel the pain, learn from it, apply, and keep going. And that's where you have to be more concerned with growth over the pleasure that comes with achieving a result, if that makes sense.
You're going to summarize that?
Right. Because like, I'll use sports, for example, again, a good coach like Bill Walsh in The Score Takes Care of Itself. He wasn't even worried necessarily too much about the score, because if his team won, but they didn't apply the principles that they learned, if they didn't play a good game, that wasn't necessarily a win for him. Now, obviously, he wants to win, right? It's not like he likes to lose. So it's kind of like two-pronged approach. Don't be afraid to set the goals, to set the standards. Feel the pain when you don't reach it, but get a lot of pleasure from the growth and the evolution and the things that you learn, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you want to be more concerned with growth over the outcome, whether it's good or bad.
Right. But the outcomes do matter, is what I'm saying. They do matter. And you can't be afraid to feel that anxiety that comes along with not reaching your goal, with not being good enough. It's a healthy fear to fear not being good enough, because quite frankly, none of us are really good enough for what it is that we want. Otherwise, we'd have had what we wanted. Right. So by virtue of growing, we're saying there's some end I haven't reached yet. There's some place I want to be that I'm not. That awareness that we're not there is pain. It's hunger. That's what hunger is. When you're hungry, it's like, shit, I don't have anything to eat. Like I feel this void. And so the idea is to constantly be hungry, so that even when you eat, even when you get that end result, you got a tapeworm in your stomach. Like Lil Wayne says, you hungry right back again. And the cycle repeats, and you become addicted to that cycle, as opposed to just the end result. So all of the great, I'm not talking about kind of great. We're talking about the Nick Sabans, the legends, the Nick Sabans of the world, the Bill Walshes of the world, the John Woodens of the world. These were the guys that literally were not worried about the end result at all, virtually. Now they care about the end result. They're so much more interested in setting super, super high standards and growing to meet those standards, and then recreating the standards, raising them again and again and again, because they know that's where the true fulfillment comes from. That's where dynasties happen. That's where real greatness happens. And that's what I feel like we all, especially that have been listening to this podcast, right? That's what we should be aiming for, to be legends in whatever area that we're in our families, in our homes, in our jobs, in our businesses. That's what we should be aiming for.
What if someone's like, man, like I'm actually just okay with being like really good at what I do. Like I'm actually not trying to be a legend.
Hey, then I'm not talking to them. You know okay. I'm not talking to those people. You go listen to something else. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing in the world wrong with that. Yeah. But the reality is there is a small percentage of people that really, really are called to lead, right? They're really, really, they crave that success. And they're not. Like, so I talk about the book Relentless by Tim Grover. Uh-huh. He talked about the coolers, the closers and the cleaners.
Right.
Not everybody's a cleaner. But however, I would challenge that person, and I would dig a little deeper and ask them, are you really okay with that? Because I'm not sure. Only you can really answer that. Only the person. And that's why the ability to face reality is such a important skill. And it is a skill because you have to practice it, to be honest with yourself. Are you really satisfied? Are you really satisfied in your home life? And what does good even really mean to you? Are you really satisfied with not growing? And that's really what I mean by being legendary. So when I'll use Kobe Bryant as an example. He said, they asked him, they said, what is your number one advice you have for any, young player? He said, try to win as many championships as possible. To every young player, he would said that, because Kobe knows if you set that barometer really high, you're naturally going to grow and evolve a lot. And you're not going to win every championship. Only one team can win every year. It'd be ridiculous of us to think that we're going to win every championship. However, if we set that barometer high, we'll grow. And to me, people who are afraid of that, they value comfort over that growth. And that's cool. I'm not knocking anyone. But again, I'm assuming that people listening to this podcast, much like the ones listening to mine, they actually are the type of people who love to grow. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending hours out of their day consuming books, listening to podcasts. And that's the other thing. And I'll just say this to those listening as well. You are probably the type of person who listens to podcasts day in, day out. And you get really comfortable with that. It's almost like you consuming content like the same way I used to watch ESPN and listen to Jim Rome and, Stephen A. Smith. You have to challenge yourself to actually start applying this. You see what I'm saying? Actually start living this and say, like, what is it that I really, really do value? And so anyway, I would say those people who are too concerned with just staying still, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm talking to the ones who actually really do want to do something legit, significant in this world.
That's beautiful. And what do you recommend doing when someone reaches their goal? They go through the journey, they've been through the fire, they reach their goal, and then what?
Set another one. You know what I'm saying? Set another one. I say, man, set goals or set standards. Like, have a standard for yourself. I'll use Nick Saban as an example again. He's not concerned really with whether or not his team wins the championship or not. And guess what he does? Out of every 10 years, he's probably winning 4 or 5 of them. You see what I'm saying? Because after he wins the championship, whether he wins it or not, he's going to double down and find a way to raise the standard again. So if you're waiting on some event, some reaching of the goal to fulfill you, you've already lost. So just what you need to do is set a high standard, raise that standard systematically, grow, push yourself to grow on a daily basis, evaluate yourself often, and get addicted to that feeling. And then when the results come, let them pour in. And sometimes they won't, but you got to stay even keel because you have control over how fast you evolve to some degree. You have control over how much you peep game and see what did I do well and what did I not do well. You have control over what you do every day. You don't always have control over those results. So to that person, I would say, do a better job of setting standards for yourself about what you see for yourself. And every single day, evaluate, push yourself, get more addicted to that growth as opposed to that end result.
Get more addicted to the growth. I like it. So how important is having a vision in all of this?
Oh, man, it's so key. And again, like I mentioned with the Kobe, the vision is like who would start to build a home without having an end game of what you're even building? Most people are just, to use the analogy of buying a home, they just went to Home Depot, bought a couple 2x4s and some nails and just like nailing shit and just like sit down with a group of people, if you will, and some advisors, get an architect, a coach, right? Help you craft the vision, the end game. Get a clear picture of where it is that you're going, and then begin step by step building that vision. Because when you do that, you have, first of all, it's so much more fun because you're excited, right? Not only that, you can see the progress come together more quickly and it's more enjoyable. So without a vision, man, in the Bible, I think it's in the Bible, it says, without a vision, my people perish. You know what I mean? Like a leader's job is to create vision. So even for men listening who have wives, who have, kids, set a vision for your relationship. Let your lady be excited about what you're to become, about what your relationship is to become. Set a vision for your family so your kids can be excited about who they're a part of. Everybody longs for an identity, right? And that vision really is your identity. So instead of setting the vision as some outside thing, right? When I read my visions every day, I don't read it as some destination I'm going to eventually get to. It's like the vision is the standard. This is who I am. And that right there, if you start looking at your vision in that way and saying, this is who I am, that will start to make you push and push and push and push even more. And again, as opposed to setting some goal or outcome that's far away, the vision is this is who we are and this is what we're building.
Yeah. And so in order to build that vision and make it come into fruition, we would have to have some discipline. Because I think designing your life, it's almost like looking at, you look at dream homes or something in the magazine. It's right. Oh, it's so, I want to live here. I want to live here. It's fun. It's exciting. And we can do that with our lives. We can design our life I want this. I want to have this house. I want to have this, car, this relationship. I want to be here. I want to do this with my free time, travel. All that is, it's very fun. I think that's an important step though to do. But now you got to roll up your sleeves and do the work. And a part of that is going to be discipline. And so how can people stay consistent? I think that's, it's so fun to get started, but it's really hard to do.
Right. I think the biggest thing I'll just say for me, and there's a ton of different ways to go with that question. You can go more tactically and tools and things. I'll just tell you for me what's made the biggest difference, because I'm going to assume that everyone listening to this has no shortage of tools and little tricks and planners and things like that. The biggest key for me is making what I have to do every day. Let's just say, for example, tomorrow is my recording day. I'm going to record 12 episodes, right? Making what I have to do, making it a must. So the question now becomes, how do I make it a must? Because when we have to do something, we get it done. Yeah. So a few weeks ago, I was in a tight crunch. I had a smaller amount of time on Tuesday, and I was literally considering maybe I should just do 4 or 5. I got a couple episodes in the bank. I can get away with not recording the full. And I'm it didn't feel right. I listened to that instinct. And I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and go on Instagram real quick. I'm going to tell my followers, yo, I'm about to record 12 episodes. I got them written here on my whiteboard. I'm going to see you. I'm going to check back in 5 hours and I'm going to be done with these episodes. And if I don't, obviously, I'm going to have to answer to you guys. And immediately what happened after that, I was like, oh, shit, I actually really have to record these because there's no way in the world I'm just going to like not show up 5 hours from now. And people are already, I remember I logged in like a couple 2.5 hours in and people are already like, so what's going on? Like, I'm like, so making it something you have to do. So I'm really, really big. Like last week I did a 5-day fast. Like I didn't eat anything for 5 days. Right.
Wow.
And it was,
so no food, but you're drinking water.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Drinking water, drinking psyllium husk, lemon water, etc. But no food. I had a breakdown on day 2, which was the hardest.
Wow.
But 5 days. But one of the things that I did to help me was I told my kids, because look, I know that I value what my kids think about me. I value their opinion. I don't want my kids to look at me and think I'm a deadbeat or that I'm some bum who just talks all this shit and doesn't back it up. So I told them, I said, listen, guys, I'm not eating anything for 5 days. You see what I'm saying? So if you see me try to bum a little piece off your plate, if you see me, I want you to call me out. Right. And sure enough, there were several times I went to Costco. I remember we got our passport photos taken.
That's the worst place to go on a fast.
Oh,
you
worst.
Went to Costco on a fast.
And I told my wife, I was like, it was that night too. Willpower was down, and my kids got a little something from the little spot. You know what I mean? And I didn't sit over there with them. I was just walking around. But it was this weird feeling that came because I was on point. Because there's no way in the world I was going to do it after I just told my kids. And so for everybody, whoever you are, you got to know what your leverage point is. Like, who is it? Is your wife, your friends, like whatever it is, use it. But at the end of the night, I was like walking around Costco and it's like this weird feeling that came over me. I was like, wow, like I feel really, really in control right now. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of power, a lot of freedom that came along with that. So anyway, my point is, whatever it is you have to do, set up the situation in your life so that you have to do it. You have to do it. There's no way you can't do it. And again, for everyone that's going to be different. I work here at my home. I use my children a lot. I tell my wife, get yourself an accountability coach, obviously, a group of friends, an accountability partner, whatever it is that you have to do, put some money down on it. Make sure you have to do it. And then once you do those little tasks, make sure that you reinforce what you've just done. And what I mean by that is when a dog goes pee outside, we got a puppy like not too long ago. We had to get rid of it, though. The kids weren't taking care of him. But we got a puppy and we're trying to potty train it. What they taught us was that every time he goes pee outside, you give him a little treat, especially in the beginning. It's not like every time he goes pee for the rest of his life, he's going to get a doggy bone. But in the beginning, you want him to associate pleasure with peeing outside. Peeing outside, get a little doggy bone. Peeing outside, get a little doggy bone. Pretty soon, it's going to become a habit. So when you start being more disciplined, when you start actually executing, when you do work out, give yourself props, praise yourself. Don't go get a burger and fries. That's not what I mean. What I mean is allow yourself to feel true pleasure at the moment when you do that thing, because that's going to train yourself. That's what that means for you. And so if you do that, of course, every day, day in, day out, you become more disciplined. Another great tool for me is to evaluate my progress after the week, right? So, for example, if your goal is to work out, you want to work out 5 days out of the week, at the end of the week, evaluate how you've done and use whatever the number is. Let's say you only worked out twice and the goal is 5, right? Okay, good. What's the good in that? You obviously worked out twice. Obviously, you should feel some pain because you missed 3 workouts. Use that pain. Evaluate why. What was the reason why you didn't follow through? Identify the problem, the chokehold. What was it? And then design a new plan to get around that particular problem and do it again. Just keep going. It's not like you'll just become as disciplined as Jocko Willink, just because you got some little hack or you got some little tool. It's day in, day out. Every day, recommit to discipline. Every single day. It's hard as hell, man, to stay disciplined with your eating, especially in the type of work that you and I do. When you talk about, how do you feel, for example, after you record a bunch of episodes? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I know for me, I want to go get eat some candy. You know what I mean? It's like you just use a bunch of the mental energy that comes with what we're doing, coaching people and emotionally engaging in what you're doing. Yeah. Your glucose is low. You want to eat. It's hard, but you want to recommit on a daily basis. Set up triggers and cues. You see these people on my wall back here. I call them my extreme mentors. So each one of these people are 20 times more of whatever quality is that I'm trying to emulate from them. So, for example, I got The Rock over there. The Rock works out at 4 a.m. each morning, no matter what movie he just recorded. So on the days where I'm thinking, oh, man, my little 45-minute workout, I surely could do that, considering I didn't just, shoot the movie Hercules last night. You know what I mean? I'm not getting ready to do 2 hours of heavy weightlifting. It's 45 minutes. If he can do that, I surely can do that, because the brain works by comparison, right? The only way we know something is hot is because we felt cold. So if I say, okay, Frederick Douglass, for example, this dude escaped slavery twice, right? I'll never have to deal with that type of fear. So when I'm being scared over making this phone call or sending out this email, if Frederick Douglass can escape slavery 2 times, I surely could write this email. I surely could do whatever little task. So that's another little trick that I use in order to get myself to follow through whenever I'm considering not.
I like that. Yeah. Well, one man can do, another man can do. Maybe not exactly at the same level, but if one man can overcome great fear, then you can overcome a great fear. It may be at a different extent, but you can still emulate a lot of those characteristics in yourself. He's human, you're human. He can do something great. Why not you? And, why not you? And I think everyone should ask themselves that question, like, why not you? And hopefully you don't come up with a list of reasons.
Right.
What did you eat after your 5-day fast? Did you have a countdown timer? Were you like, did you make the meal and you're just staring at it? Like, I
was ready. There's a couple different books that I was using to guide me through it in terms of the reason, because there was a lot of reasons behind why I was doing it. But one is the Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity, and the other is the 7-Day Detox Miracle. And so what I learned is that it's important when you're coming off a fast to go really light. You know what I'm saying? Your digestive system just had a big break. You don't want to overload it with a burger and fries right away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I had some watermelon, blueberries, raspberries, and 2 slices of toast. That was like the most delicious toast I've ever had in my life. That was awesome, man. But I learned a ton while going through that. Like I said, I had a breakdown day 2. So it was funny because for me, like another way I sort of bulletproof my environment, I can't have sweets around. I will eat them. You see what I'm saying? I will eat them. So day 2 was a struggle. But early in that morning, I actually lifted, and I had a hell of a great day lifting because I was still working out through this. So I was feeling really good. But that was my recording day as well. And on recording day, I also feel a lot of resistance, every time I record, I feel some sort of fear, some sort of anxiety. And so I was dealing with that, couldn't eat. And then like halfway through the day, man, I'd recorded a few episodes. I was just walking around, right? Went in my wife's office, opened a little drawer. So she usually has some snacks. And it was just a gold mine in there. I was like, oh, no. I felt like, what's that movie with Denzel Washington where he was an alcoholic and he walked in that hotel and they left the door open. Flight. Yeah,
Flight.
Yeah, where he saw it, he was probably like, shit, now I got to drink it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just had down a whole bag of Gardettos, you know what I mean? And what was it? Some M&Ms too. And then right after I was like, I didn't feel good, but I sat with the pain. I was like analyzing, almost looking at myself from a distance, like what was going on there? So anyway, I threw away the rest of the stuff in that inner drawer and just got right back to work. I was like, there's no way I'm going to quit the fast now. I just had a little meltdown. I'm just get right back on track. And then the rest of the 3.5 days, I was money. You know what I mean? And my body felt very, very weak, but it was weird. My mind was really clear. Mine was very clear. I got a ton of work done. Emotionally, I was sound with the exception of the last 2 days. I started getting a little grumpy, a little short with the kids. But it was awesome, man. I felt great. I lost 10 pounds, but obviously that's not, sustainable.
Right.
It was really, really good from a discipline standpoint. I feel like I overcame a lot of fears. There's a great book by Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil, right? Yeah. And he talks about the devil was breaking down the 3 appetites that every man must master. And he talks about number 1 is the appetite for food. Number 2, the appetite for sex. And number 3, the appetite to express loosely organized opinions, right? And I thought that was powerful because when you gain control over the desire to eat food, we really don't need half as much food as we think we need.
Right.
Same thing with sex. When you can train yourself, discipline yourself to not, get rid of that chi, you know what I mean? There's a lot of power that comes in that. There's a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it's like sexual energy, not like even like looking at girls on social media, or a girl walks by like she controls you. It's like two guys are talking and then having a good conversation, and then a girl walks in, the restaurant or whatever, and like just like she controls the energy in the room. But to be able to stay focused on your goals and what you want. So it's not just the act of sex, it's like sexual energy, because it can steal so much of your time, day, and money if you're buying things.
Right.
There's all kinds of ways to spend money on that sexual energy. But
Absolutely.
what I think food that makes sense, obviously having, being able to control sugar and all that, and being able to control how much you eat. I think sexual energy, I think all the guys get that. But I think the one that could use more diving into is you said loosely organized opinions.
Yes. And if you think about it, I mean, just think of social media, right? Like everyone wants to say what they think. Everyone wants to, there's a weird type of pleasure that we get from giving our opinion. Like if you're around a group of people, say it's 5 guys, everyone wants to like give their little 2 cents. And we have to control that urge, because most of the time we don't know what the hell we're talking about. And most people don't know what they're talking about. Most people are really, really quick to say what they believe or think about something, and they haven't organized those opinions. They're not approaching something from a reasonable standpoint. They're just fulfilling that same desire. It's just like sitting around and digging your hand in a bowl of M&Ms, right? We just want to eat it, and we just want to say what we want to say. And I would challenge everyone to really start getting clear about challenging a lot of your opinions. Even with a lot of these things going on, you got Donald Trump, you got, the NFL players kneeling, we got the boys, Boy Scouts, the girls not be, transgender, gays, marriage, marijuana, all of these really controversial things that everyone loves to have an opinion on, but very few people have thought this through, and very few people have their opinions founded on some sound logic and reason and have done their research. So when we think about guys like, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's rule is if you have an opinion on something, you should be able to argue the other side better than they can.
Wow.
And if you just use that framework alone, a lot of your opinions will be hushed. You know what I mean? Because it's like, who is really, taking time out to see the other side of whether or not gays should be married, of the other side of why the NFL players are kneeling, or whether that they should be kneeling or not. Have you looked at both sides? Have you done your research? So anyway, that's what the devil was talking about in that. And I tend to find that that's very true.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. I think Don Miguel Ruiz has a book, The 4 Agreements, and he says, like, be impeccable with your word. I think that kind of goes along the same lines without just blurting out whatever I think too, as men, there's a little bit of ego involved. It's like a group of men talking, and then it's like, oh, I got to like say something. I got to show that I have value. But sometimes you are just decreasing your own value. What you can do, Dale Carnegie says, listen more, just listen more and absorb, what people are saying more, get to know people, ask questions more rather than try to win, rather than try to share what you have to say without knowing too much about it. Right. I think very powerful points. Thank you for bringing that up. Loosely organized opinions. And I like what you talked about with Warren Buffett, being able to, can you switch sides and can you win?
Right.
That's when, you've really looked at this from both standpoints. I think that would be very good to use around the topic of gun control. I think I think a lot of one-sided viewpoints. I think very interesting. But with all of this, let's say you are doing it, you're in the journey, you're in the fire, but you're failing. And we all hear, we've heard that quote by Einstein, like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. At what point do you think a guy's like, dude, maybe I should just not, this is not for me. Like I'm failing. What would be your advice to someone who's going through a situation like that, where they are just failing?
That's a great question, man. And for example, we start with setting the vision, right? If you've defined that vision properly, meaning if it's something that you actually really, really want, then this is how I do it. I commit to it, meaning like I've committed to a certain end game, but I'm willing. Jeff Bezos has a great quote: be rigid as hell on that vision, on that end game, but be flexible on your approach, right? And the way I say it is like, be married to the end game, but be willing to divorce the strategy. So if someone's considering, quote unquote, quitting, right? We talk about pivoting. I know there's a great book by called by Seth Godin, The Dip, right? Knowing like when to quit or fail or quit or something to that degree. To me, that's more about the strategy. It's like how you get there. But if you're going to give up on what you want just because you haven't gotten it yet, I advise heavily against that. And the reason why is because if you do that, the amount of confidence that you lose, the amount of pain that you now have associated to trying something new is going to be really, really hard to overcome. And you're probably going to be a lion, what I call a lion in the zoo. You're probably just going to go right back to the zoo and just opt to just get your food handed to you just for the safety. To me, it's much better. It's much more fulfilling to set the end game, something that you really want. And that can be sort of vague, if you will. I don't mean you have to know exactly what type of, job you want to work at or exactly who you want to help yet. Nuh-uh. Just what is it that you want from your life? What type of impact do you want to have? How do you want to live? And then be committed to getting that no matter what. Because if you're that easily swayed, if you've tried something, one strategy, and you think that just because you've tried this strategy over and over and over again, that means you should quit, you're going to have a hard time in life in general. So that's what I would say, man, is just be willing to shift the strategy in whatever way you need to. Another thing is this. I would challenge people to, honestly, just inventory your actions for a week. Just say, okay, what do I do every day? If you work, let's say you started a business, you started a podcast, you're trying to get more listeners and nothing's working. You're not getting new clients. Just inventory what you do each week, right? And right now, when you look at that, you actually have a recipe for exactly what you've gotten. So if you're doing that same recipe, thinking that you're going to get a different result, you'd probably be what we call an idiot, right? Someone who's doing the same thing over and over. So do something different. Learn more, read more, find people who are doing what you want to do, who have gotten the result, and see, does my process match theirs? I see this all the time with athletes. They have these big goals, these big dreams. You want to go to the NFL. You want to do this. You want to make all this money. But look at what your process looks like. It doesn't match Michael Johnson. It doesn't match Kobe. So how in God's name can you expect to get Kobe-like results when you're not willing to put in Kobe-type effort? When your process doesn't look Kobe-like. Epictetus talks about this in one of my favorite books, Art of Living, the Stoic philosopher. He's like, if you're going to do something, don't be so naive to believe that you're going to get it without doing what someone else had to do to get it. It's called living in alignment with the laws of nature. So if you want to grow tomatoes, then you got to plant a tomato seed and you got to water it and you got to give it the right amount of time for a tomato to develop. So identify what type of crops you're trying to harvest and then learn about how would a farmer who gets that type of harvest go about tilling that soil? What would they do? And make sure, because most of the time, those people willing to quit, they haven't properly analyzed their process and they couldn't tell you what somebody else is doing. Let's take you, for example. If one of those people who started that podcast would just simply mirror what you're doing, they would get results, but they're not doing what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Instead, they're complaining and crying about how they've been trying something for so long and it hasn't worked out. Open your eyes, become more aware, read books, learn, watch YouTube videos, buy courses, educate yourself, go to seminars, find people who have done it and actually apply what they're doing. And if you apply it and then you still don't get it,
then you refund the book.
Yeah, right. Just kidding. Right. Then you might need to get somebody else to come in and see, okay, there's some nuances to this, but everybody wants the easy fix, man. It's not simple, man. Right, it's not simple. It's complex. There is no, one shot, follow this recipe and you'll get it. That's what the people who are looking for that, you'll be looking for a long time. Instead, get a good idea what it takes to accomplish what you want. Apply this shit on a daily basis, evaluate often, continue learning, continue evolving, and you'll be very happy with what you get. I can promise you that.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, the biggest, I don't know if it's necessarily a hack, but the biggest thing that has helped me is surrounding myself with the right people. Right. It happens with me all the time. Like, you're looking at me, you can see me on video, Niyi, and I have all these books behind me. It's so funny because anytime I bring, whether it's a new friend or even a girl back when I was dating, they see this stack of books. It's not even a stack anymore. It's like a whole wall of books. And I've just been reading since I was 19. And so that's 10 years of reading books, like 1 or 2 books a month. That's not crazy, but it looks like I read a ton. What happens over time, though, it's so funny. It's so funny. Each one of my friends will slowly have a shelf in their office. And then all of a sudden, I just noticed that they have a little bit more books than the last time I came over. And recently, I hadn't seen my friend in a while. Like, I hadn't been into his house in a while. We hang out and stuff. And I remember just looking over, and he himself, within a year, probably had a wall of books too. And then recently, there's this other friend of mine, but we've really started kicking off lately. I was at his house. We're looking at the sun, watching the sunset. He lives on the beach. And I was like, dude, this is a nice bookshelf. And he's like, yeah. And then I come over next week and there's like more books. And then like I come over because they come over to my house. They see all these books and it just rubs off. And I'm not sure if they're actually reading the books at this point. But what I'm saying, though, is like how, they hang around me. And I like to read books. I like to quote books. Like I don't like to just talk out of my own mind. I like to, like what you're doing. You're dropping Epictetus. You're dropping these big names. And it comes from a position of like, wow, you're well read. Like you've done a lot of research. You've worked on yourself. Like feels more humble too. But of course, your own opinions are valid as well because of your journey. I just find that like when you surround yourself with other people, like you, like a chameleon, you become like them. Right. And like I got buddies who they want a podcast just because they're around me. They hear me talking about it. I get to interview cool guys like you. I was just interviewing another really awesome guy before this. And it's like, oh man, I want to start a podcast. And some of them do. So if my friends were, still doing drugs and drinking heavily during, every evening and, eating burgers, like I still have a burger, no doubt, but eating burgers every day, like it's a part of their diet, then I'm going to become like them. Like just hands down. But like I got guys who are trying to like, what are the questions that your friends are asking? Like, what are the current questions your friends are asking? If your friend's question is how do I reduce my electricity bill this month, then that's the level of like intelligence and like that's what he's striving for in life.
Exactly.
Right. But if you got a friend, he's like, I'm trying to figure out how to work 50 hours a year and make $100,000 a month. Like that's a pretty interesting question. Think about the questions your friends are asking. For me, like the level of questions someone's asking is showing me the level of challenge that they're undergoing in their life. And if everyone's around you is asking powerful questions, then I think it makes for a powerful life.
Absolutely, man. I agree 100%. And I think that's incredible, man. The fact that that's being a leader. You know what I'm saying? You're leading. So, and you're doing it without even trying. They just come over to your house, they see the books, and then naturally they feel some discomfort. They feel some pain, right? Because they're like,
he knows something that I don't.
Right. And then that pain, right? That's so good that they're not running from it. They're embracing it. Because you know what a lot of friends would do? They would stop showing up at your house.
Right.
They would stop calling. They would naturally just fall off. And I've seen that, and I'm sure I can guarantee you probably seen that same thing where some friends you just don't vibe with them anymore. But a lot of people are hungry to grow, but they need somebody leading them. So here you are leading them, showing them, and just through your actions alone, you probably don't go out to dinner with them and start talking all this shit to them like, you guys need to improve your life. That's a mistake that I've made in the past. I've wised up since. But it's like, nah, you just be yourself. You show up in that car. You show up looking healthy. When I was a firefighter, I would sit down and I would eat my food, right? And I would prepare my own food. And I wasn't eating what they're eating because they're eating lasagna every night and burgers and shit. And I'm just like, yo, I can't do that. And some people talk shit. And then others are like, yo, so what's the explanation behind that? And then they start carrying it on. So I think that's awesome, man. And I think, again, having that group of friends is really, really important, man.
Yeah, and even if it's virtual. I mean, I got friends here in San Diego, of course, but I definitely connect with people virtually. And then if you're in their town, go meet them. But man, your circle of influence, like, I just think it would be so hard to do this alone. Like those dark times, man, like if you don't have someone to talk to, like, I just think, all entrepreneurs would be in insane asylums if they didn't have people to really talk to. Like what a lot of people are doing or what they're doing on the journey. It's crazy. It's hard. It's in some cases impossible. And so surrounding yourself with the right people, I think, is everything.
Absolutely. Let's
dive into the knowledge round. Just want to ask you a few last rapid fire questions here into the knowledge round, Niyi.
Definitely.
So you might be wondering, why would I ever invest in a coach? I've never done anything like that before. Well, it's going to shorten your learning curve and save you the time that it would take to achieve your goal. You can avoid making mistakes that you would otherwise make. You'll get more results because everything will be tailored to your specific needs and challenges. The coach will hold you accountable so you can't procrastinate, so you can't be lazy, so you can't say, I didn't have the time. You'll be challenged and pushed harder than you've ever been pushed. You'll have conversations so powerful that you'll feel more energized, alive, and confident and certain about the goals that you have in front of you and where you want to go, but most importantly, where you want to be. You'll go farther than you've ever gone before when you have a coach. If you want to learn more about our high performance men's coaching program, go to kfmcoach.com. Again, that's kfmcoach.com to learn more about our high performance men's coaching program. You have got to understand that every successful person in the world invests in coaching to go from good to great. And if you're already a high achiever, then how much more could you achieve if you had a high performance men's coach at your side to push you even further? Go to kfmcoach.com to learn more and apply for our high performance men's coaching program. Again, that's kfmcoach.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
What advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost and unsure? So they're kind of like a pit bull on a leash. Like they got all this energy, but they don't know where to channel it.
Yep. I would sit down with pen and paper. First of all, I ask myself, what are all the things that I'm really, really, really unsatisfied with? What are the areas of my life that I'm really pissed off with? And I would get very, very precise. I would say specifically what pisses me off about my body, about my bank account, about my relationship, about my career, etc. And then for each one of those things, I would craft a vision around it. That if you just do that alone, just do that and start there and actually sit down and take out a pen and paper, go to a nice restaurant. Me and my wife go to the beach every quarter, right? And we recraft our visions, right? Recraft our goals, sit in a restaurant somewhere, like close the door, whatever, get your environment right. Identify the shit that pisses you off, identify what you want. And then I'll just take it a step further, craft a strategy, a game plan, a step by step of how to get there, announce it to someone that you love, announce it to somebody. And then just do one thing at a time. Check off the boxes. Just start there. You know, that's what I would say to somebody who's really lost, unsure of where to go.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is a brand new notebook. That's it. Like, that makes me happy. Is give me a notebook and just give me some, like a little bit of time and a pen and like a tea. I could chill with that for an hour, easy. 2 hours. I could just, it's like giving an artist, like if he's a painter, like give him a brush and a canvas, like, yeah, that's he's going to be happy.
Right.
But you can do that with your life, with what you're saying with the vision. Like you can design your life like an artist and you can make your life really something special. I love it, man. I love journaling. What do you think is holding most men back from becoming stronger, grounded men today?
Ooh, that's a big question. What do I think is holding most men back? Well, number one, obviously it's their mindset, but let me get more specific. The number one thing holding most men back, I gotta say, the inability to face pain, the inability to deal with pain, the inability to look at the reality square in the eye and do something about it. So what do most men do? They run from it towards vices, right? TV, sex, food, video games, whatever the hell it is, even podcasts, listening to podcasts, binging out without really applying the shit, just listening to it just to say you listen to some podcasts. I think it's that inability to deal with pain. So if men could start being courageous and actually start looking at reality, which is something that in 2017 is really easy not to do, right? 10,000 years ago, you couldn't afford to do that because you would be dead. But now it's real easy not to look at pain. So if men could overcome that fear of pain and looking at reality dead in the eye, I feel like a lot of men can start moving forward at a faster rate.
That's great. Yeah. The inability to like endure pain, run from it towards vices, and often with an excuse in the air. This is why I'm doing this, you guys.
Exactly.
It's really serious. Okay. What would you say are 3 of your most influential books that you like to read when you're trying to endure pain and going through the journey?
Yes, that's a great question. Number 1 is The Art of Living by Epictetus. That's a go-to for me. I have like several copies around my house. I have it by my bedstand, in my toilet, in the master bedroom. I read that a lot. 50th Law, definitely. That's my favorite book of all time. I listen to that. Yep, exactly. I listen to that every day, read it often. My son, 12, just finished it. I was super proud of him.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then let me see the third, man. To endure pain. So when I'm struggling, when I'm frustrated, you're gonna quit. The Path to Prosperity. The Path to Prosperity by James Allen. Incredible book, timeless. I mean, every time I read it, I get new things from it. It's very, very beautifully written. He's the same author that wrote As a Man Thinketh.
Yeah.
And he's famous, obviously, for that book, but he's wrote a ton of books. If you go on Amazon, actually, there's like a $21 book where you can get like his whole library. It's like that fat. It's legit. But Path to Prosperity is a little book. It's longer than As a Man Thinketh, but I believe it's better. I mean, not to say like, obviously, As a Man Thinketh is a classic, but I just love Path to Prosperity. He talks so much about dealing with adversity in that book. And he even gets really practical because he's pretty poetic, but he gets pretty practical. He even gives is one of the greatest parts in his book when he talks about when you are frustrated, when you've just experienced failure. He talks about how, number one, you need to get yourself in a calm, peaceful state of mind, right? So to divert your mind away from it and think about something very peaceful, he says, sit down in a chair, meditate on something beautiful, right? And only when you've gotten yourself back to that peaceful, calm state of mind, then you revisit that problem, but in a totally different state of mind, and you craft a plan to get around that problem, etc. And I think it's just very, very practical and beautifully written book. I love that book, Path to Prosperity.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very rare I hear a new book. I've already got it in the mail. I'm on my computer, so it's already in the mail coming from Amazon. But James Allen. So I think he's 1800s. Okay. I just think it's so crazy that these guys wrote these books so long ago. I feel like it's like perfectly applicable today.
Right.
I don't think they realize that their work would still be read today, especially Epictetus. I find that just so interesting. These guys going through similar challenges centuries and millennia ago. Now, scenario, Niyi, imagine you had 60 seconds with 25-year-old Niyi. If you can envision where he's at personally, professionally, and in his relationships, what would you tell him to do and what would you tell him not to do?
Oh, man. 25-year-old Niyi. All right. First of all, I'd slap him in the face. And I'll be like, look at me, motherfucker. And I'll be like, listen, whatever you do, you better not let your standard down. Raise that shit. I would tell him like Kobe. I'd say try to win as many championships as you can, Niyi, as many as you can. So define what championship means for you in your health, in your home life, with your wealth, with your impact. Set that shit as high as you possibly can and do not let up for nobody. Do not lower your standards because of other people around you. There will be some people who drop off, but I would say put the pedal to the metal, go as hard as you possibly can. You're young. Use that energy that you got. You know what I'm saying? You do not fear nothing but the fear of like regret. You know what I'm saying? Fear regret and shit. You know what I mean? Everything else you could bounce back from. As long as you learn, you stay aware. So don't run from pain, run towards it. Keep moving. That's what I would tell him.
That's beautiful. I like how you started with I would slap him.
Yeah, I would, because I wasn't in a good spot at 25, man. But yeah.
Would he have listened?
Yeah, he would have listened. I've always been humble. I've always been open, man. A lot of things that was going on with me is a lack of awareness, lack of knowledge. You know, like a lot changed for me when I started learning. I've always listened. I've always wanted to know the right way. You know, sometimes you just don't know. You know, and I'm always very grateful at the people who showed me along the way. So if I had 33-year-old Niyi to tell me what the fuck was going on, I would listen. You know what I mean? I would really want to know.
How old were you when the NFL career ended?
I think I was about 26.
Okay.
Yeah, 26 or 27. So I was early in the league, but I was just like, I just didn't know nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know. Like, and so that's why I would slap myself. I'd be like, you got to wake up. I had a great work ethic, always very disciplined and things like that, but I just didn't know. And I didn't have a compelling enough vision. I thought very small in a lot of ways. When it came to sports, I was all in, but in other areas of my life, I was dumb. Even financially, I'm just like, what was I doing? Like, how did I not know to, invest and save and do all these things that you and I now know? And it's like, damn, like if I only started just a little bit earlier. But yeah, so that's what I would tell that guy.
Yeah. I'm sure that for a lot of athletes, especially when they make it to that level, not just high school, I'm sure high school, there's some of this going on, but college and then the NFL, that your identity is, I'm an athlete. And then that's been your identity since, how long have you been playing football? Like what? Yeah.
So like I was like 7th grade.
So is that 12? That's 12, 13. So for, you're pretty much half your life, your identity has been, I'm an athlete. Right. And then when that's taken away from you, it's like, what do I do? And like, I have all this skill set, but like, where do I put it? And so I'm sure there's a lot of challenge there and questioning going on.
Absolutely.
Man, I feel like my next question here is about your philosophy on success, but I feel like we have covered that.
Yeah.
We've definitely covered so much of that. What do you want someone to do here? I mean, we've been chatting, you've been dropping so much knowledge and wisdom, almost an hour here. It would be a shame if someone was to listen to this and just like we've been talking about, just get all the value, but like not actually do anything with it. What would you want someone to do that would make this worth your time of coming on the show?
Yes. You mean like in terms of what they should do in their life period, or just in terms of what I'm doing? And
no, just like what is an action item that you would like the audience to do when we end here that would make it worth it?
I would say the same answer I gave to that last question. I think it was something about what advice would you give a man who's struggling? I would just tell people to literally take out their pen and paper and identify all the areas that are not the way that I want and get really clear on the pain in their life. Because that pain, just like the body, is signaling you to where you need to do something. And then I would tell them to craft that vision and create a plan. And if they want to go about getting a coach, there's a ton out there. Obviously, you got me. They got you. They got so many different tools and resources. But just get clear on what you want and stop aimlessly wandering around. No more wandering. I feel like men can't afford to do that. The masculine energy is all about focus. It's about drive. It's about moving forward. You can't do that. And you especially can't be a man who has a woman trying to do that shit aimlessly wandering around. Get clear on what you want. Nothing pisses me off more than when I see a man who doesn't know what he wants. I feel like that's the worst thing in the world. That's unforgivable. I'll say that again. That's unforgivable. If you don't know what you want, you should be ashamed of yourself. Get clear about what you want. That's the very least that you can do for your families, for yourself, for your grandchildren, for your children, for your legacy. You know what I'm saying? For human race, I would say. Step your game up, I would tell all these men.
That's beautiful. I love it. And for all the followers, all the listeners here, I'm not you.com. Man, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show. Second time running, coming in here talking about how to overcome the challenges, overcome adversity, overcome just when you're in the fire. How do we keep putting that first, that step in front of the other and just move forward. And even when we get to the other end, right, and it doesn't work out, we continue. And I think for guys who, I gave you that question in the beginning, like, what if we're okay with just being good, or just like, pretty good, or just, kind of good? I think you really slapped a lot of people in the head with like, man, are you really happy with that? Chances are, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, is it Tony Robbins, then you're dying.
Right.
I think there's a lot of value that came from having you here on the show today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, man. And I look forward to meeting you in person next time I come to SD.
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.